keeping students and school employees away from the dangers of the coronavirus while continuing with business operations. That's possible. Introducing V-Smart Enroll, an online enrollment system that makes enrollment faster, safer, and more convenient. With V-Smart Enroll, all relevant documents can be processed and organized in the comfort of your own home. Here's what V-Smart Enroll can offer. V-Smart Enroll works online and it promotes a 100% paperless transaction. V-Smart Enroll paves the way for an easy and streamlined enrollment setup. It is modeled after DepEd's Learning Information System to make sure that students' learning records are documented properly and tracked accordingly. This online enrollment system also supports the Data Privacy Act of 2012, so all your data is guaranteed safe and protected. You also don't have to worry about going out of your house to get enrolled, because with V-Smart Enroll, everything can be done online within the safety of your own home. Vibal will also be with you throughout the entire enrollment journey, as we will provide consistent technical support to help you navigate smoothly through the system. V-Smart Enroll is developed and designed for school administrators, registrars, students, and even for parents' use. With this highly convenient system, an hour of enrollment process can be trimmed down to 15 minutes or even less because of its easy and accessible registration and application process for parents and students. Even the registrars will experience fast and easy transactions. You can also subscribe to V-Smart Enroll by paying through various payment channels. To subscribe to V-Smart Enroll, school administrators just need to create a school account for their institution. How? Simply go to enroll.vsmart.ph, select your subscription plan, agree to the privacy policy, fill out the online registration form, and pay for subscription. Easy peasy! With this user-friendly online platform, the enrollment process can now be accomplished with just a few clicks. Start your enrollment now. Subscribe to V-Smart Enroll and experience enrollment like never before.
Good day, Kavibal, and welcome to our Learn at Home learning session. For the discussion today, the topic will be on a foodie street, unveiling secrets behind what you eat. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning ka-Vibal! And now, to proceed with our webinar this evening, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker today. Miss Lorraine Joyce M. Del Rosario is a former teacher at the University of Santo Tomas Senior High School and instructor at the University of Santo Tomas. She has taught fields of science and practical research. With a background in journalism and communication in high school, she has also been appointed as the moderator of La Stampa, the official publication of the UST SHS, and as an e-learning specialist and educational technology coordinator. She was a member of the UST SHS Executive Committee and many other work and academic-related societies and organizations in the biological field. Apart from graduating as valedictorian in the special program in journalism in high school, Ms. Del Rosario earned a BS Biology degree from the University of the Philippines, Baguio in 2017, supported by a DOST scholarship. Her undergraduate thesis with her partner and advisor was awarded as one of the two best paper presentations in the third Philippine Solid and Hazardous Waste Management Conference. She is currently pursuing her Master of Science degree in Biology at UP Diliman, granted with USD AST HRDP scholarship. Her current field of interest is in genetics, particularly in the study of DNA in molecular phylogenetics. Aside from being an educator and a graduate student, Ms. Del Rosario spends her time writing, tutoring English online, accepting speaking and hosting engagements, and traveling as a hobby prior to the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Ms. Lorraine Joyce M. Del Rosario.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Miss Jillian. Let me begin with my presentation. In the first few slides, I am sorry to make many of you feel hungry. Especially in this time of the night, I would like to apologize to those who still haven't taken their dinner, like me. But admit it or not, we love food. Even seeing just photos or watching videos containing such mouth-watering delights as these already bring about great impact to us. That we suddenly start craving. Are you drooling now? Why are we weak when it comes to food? You know, the world offers different kinds of food, infused with its own unique flavors. This leads me to a great question. Do you live to eat or eat to live? Why do we love food so much despite underlying risk and stories? Or despite not knowing the actual nature? You know, in this world, everything has secrets. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our discussion on Foodie Street, Unveiling Secrets Behind What You Eat. Once again, I am honored being given another chance to speak before you in a topic which easily piques the interest of many. The food that we eat, they have secrets behind them, and we will unravel that in this presentation. Here is the outline of the presentation. The objectives are to be familiarized with the common foodborne pathogens that affect our food, find out the most effective way of keeping food safe, and demonstrate how biotechnology and GMOs, genetically modified organisms, play a role to address food security. So it's everything about food. So it will be divided into 4 sections: science of food, meet the culprits or the foodborne pathogens, food safety, and food security, which we'll also discuss biotechnology and GMOs. Without further ado, let's begin with our first topic. Let us first learn about the science of food. You know, from a group of researchers, they have mentioned, for most of us, food is not just nutrition. It's everything. It's social. It's how we bond, how we share ideas, and how we spend time with our families. Researchers have even claimed that there is what you call food narrative or story. that related to memories and various kinds of reasons why we love food or why suddenly we crave for food, such as this mental map about donuts. These are some of the reasons why we started thinking about donuts, right? It's forming a concept map. So there's what you call a food story. And in the science of eating, or science of food, eating is defined as the consumption of food and liquid to sustain life and meet our body's basic needs for growth, development, and function. The term food refers to what we eat, which nourishes the body. It includes solid, semi-solid, liquid. So two important features for any item to be called as food are it should be worth eating, that is, it should be edible, and it must nourish the body. Diet, of course, is just one approach to preventing illness. Limiting caloric intake to maintain a healthy weight, exercising regularly, and not smoking are three other essential strategies. It is well established that the quantity and quality of the food we consume can also affect our health. And now it is becoming clear that when we eat also plays a key role in health and disease. In science, we have what we call circadian clocks. So it becomes the biological basis of the optimal meal timing that dictates when to eat breakfast, lunch, dinner. And it's also an interesting topic to know about the evolution of food. Primitive men, women, they collect their food from wild animals and plants. As you can see here, they were forced to spend their days and nights in search of food. They lived as hunters and gatherers. And then gradually, food gatherers learned to domesticate plants and animals. The development of agricultural skills over the last 2 centuries and consequent supply of a sufficient amount of food, its preservation and storage resulted in the emergence also of civilizations and societies. And one of the great changes which occurred in man's food pattern must have also been when he learned to use fire to cook. So they settled down, built shelters, and raised plants and animals to provide food. And man eats most of his food cooked. And that is one of the many characteristics which separate man, us, from animals. And as time progresses, today in our diet, traditional food are being replaced by fast food. Traditional food are nutrient-rich, does not contain any artificial coloring, flavorings, or preservatives. But now, fast foods, we start to live with fast foods. It contains all these things. In addition, food insecurity and nutrition insecurity are challenging public health in the present thread. And so with that, it leads us to our next topic. I told you there are secrets behind food and there are culprits. Let's now meet the culprits. Although no matter how much we love food, there are secrets behind the food in the presence of foodborne pathogens and microorganisms that affect safety. So these are the foodborne pathogens. As you all know, microorganisms are tiny life forms capable of rapid reproduction under some growth conditions. And when you say foodborne pathogens, these are specific microorganisms that can cause illness in 3 ways. Those found on contaminated food can infect our intestines, causing illness. Those on contaminated food can produce toxins that cause poisoning. And those found on contaminated food can infect intestines and produce the toxins that cause the illness. So in the next few slides, we will briefly present an overview of some microorganisms found on the food that we commonly eat. It's just loading. According to public health and food safety experts, millions of illnesses can be traced to foodborne bacteria every year. Some of the foodborne pathogens are, for instance, Campylobacter, which are found in undercooked meat and poultry. raw milk, untreated water. Clostridium botulinum in honey, root vegetables, home-prepared food. Clostridium perfringens in beef, poultry, gravies, dried or pre-cooked food, and E. coli in undercooked meat, produce and raw milk. So these are the scientific names of such microorganisms. And this is how they look like under microscope. Aside from these four, I still have more in store. We also have Listeria Monocytogenes. These are found in dairy products, water, deli meat products, poultry, and seafood. Norovirus is found in the water storage system. So we also have to be careful with the water that we drink. Salmonella, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with salmonella. They can be found in raw and undercooked eggs or undercooked poultry and meat or dairy products, seafood, and produce. Staphylococcus aureus is also one famous microorganism. They are found in cooked foods high in protein, commonly found on human hands. So personal hygiene, proper hand washing is also one way to mitigate the effect of these microorganisms. This is how they look like under microscope, the four which have been mentioned. Aside from that, we also have Shigella, which are found in salads, dairy products, also water. Toxoplasma gondii primarily in pork products, our favorite tocino, our favorite luncheon meat. Vibrio vulnificus in raw or undercooked seafood. So we also have to be careful with sashimi, for instance. Hepatitis A, I'm sure it's also a familiar because they can be found in contaminated grilled food or water. I know how much we love street food, but we must also be careful. So these are how they look like under microscope. And finally, for the last batch of some typical microorganisms as foodborne pathogens, Cryptosporidium parvum in dairy products, Giardia lamblia in fruit salads, and Cyclospora in contaminated food or water. So if you can notice, they could be present in any kinds of food. This is how they look like under the microscope. We cannot see them with our naked eyes. Therefore, just a contamination, it brings about millions of them infecting onto our body system through the food that we eat or that we take, food and drinks that we eat or drink. So I have showed you some microorganisms. Can you still remember what could contaminate this food? If not, it's okay. So a while ago, you have seen microscopic image, and imagine they are contained in our food. Hence, we must really be careful of what we take into our body if we don't want to suffer at the end. So that leads us to our next topic, which is on food safety. So food safety, how sure are you that the food that you eat are safe, right? Because there are so many challenges that face food safety. We have just learned that food can be threatened, and here are major challenges of food safety. Challenge to microbiological safety. So food by nature is biological. It's capable of supporting the growth of microorganisms that are potential sources of foodborne disease. Challenge to chemical safety, because non-food grade chemical additives, colorants, preservatives, contaminants, they can also be found in food. Challenge in personal hygiene. So poor personal hygiene practices of food handler and preparers pose considerable risk to personal and public health. And finally, environmental hygiene. Inadequate recycling and waste disposal requirements and facilities lead to accumulation of spoiled and contaminated food. And actually, let me share to you this acronym, FATOM. Okay? Since microorganisms play a significant role in causing foodborne illnesses, here are the factors affecting growth of microorganisms. We can easily remember them with just the acronym FATOM, namely food, acidity, temperature, time, oxygen, and moisture. So let's briefly discuss each. For food, Many organisms grow on food rich in protein. So we also have to take note of those. And carbohydrates. And these would have a high chance of contamination and may give rise to foodborne illnesses. So what can we do to ensure food safety? We must become aware that this food have higher chance of risk. Second, we must ensure that the food is stored properly by following food storage guidelines. And thirdly, we must know what to look out for when it comes to cross-contamination of food. Second is acidity. A for acidity. Low acid food, pH, like below 4.6, such as poultry, fish, dairy, and eggs are considered potentially hazardous and more susceptible for microbial contamination. So these are the low acid food because bacteria grow best in that particular acidic environment. What can you do to ensure food safety? Cook food at high temperature. Store food at proper temperature. Check expiry dates. You can also use fridge labels to help track dates, order dates, preparation dates, expiry dates. And of course, look out for dents, bulges, leaks when you are using, for example, canned goods. Next is time. So time is also a factor because it is believed or it is found by science that after 4 hours, microorganisms in the food may produce toxin that make the food unsafe for consumption. What can you do to ensure food safety? Food should not be kept at what we call temperature danger zone for more than 4 hours. And then temperature. So microorganisms grow fastest, right, in temperature danger zone, as I have mentioned in the previous slide. So the temperature danger zone is around 5 degrees Celsius to 56.7 degrees Celsius. And this range includes room temperature as well. So to ensure food safety, we must not leave food at room temperature for too long. And we must store food to correct temperature. And then second to the last, O stands for oxygen. You know, just like us human, microorganisms require oxygen to grow. Prevent the growth of microorganisms through storing your food in a professional food containers, which are tightly sealed. So in order to ensure food safety, you must cover food at all times. Because once microorganisms are exposed to oxygen, then they could start growing and they could, contaminate the food. And finally, M is for moisture, water content. Microorganisms grow faster in food with high water content, such as fresh poultry, meat, fish, and raw eggs. So to ensure food safety, we must maintain these food stored at proper temperature with reduced moisture, as much as possible dry. And these are also 4 steps to food safety, with the practice to clean, separate, cook, and chill for storage. Now you can keep your food safe. Because it is important to maintain food safety because it will help us prevent significant disease burden as well as economic burden. And finally, now that we are talking about food safety, one topic also associated when studying about food is food security. We also have to consider the aspects that many people around the world believe in, which is they eat to live, thus highlighting the importance of food. Actually, food safety is considered a basic human right already. And food safety, as defined by United Nations, all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access. They should have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their food preferences and dietary needs for an active and healthy lifestyle. Sadly, it is often rooted in poverty, which decreases the ability of the countries to develop their agricultural markets and economies. Poverty and hunger remained the biggest development challenges of our time. Food security and undernutrition remain problems throughout the less developed parts of the world, and access to quality, nutritious food is fundamental to human existence. Secure access to food can produce wide-ranging positive impacts, of course, including economic growth. And so with this, with the goal to maintain food security, this led to the production of GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, in order to address such global issues of food security, agriculture, drug production, and nutrition. So genetically modified organisms were introduced in the market. And actually, as GMOs become prevalent, they dominate our markets and groceries. Maybe some of us are not aware, but when you go to markets and groceries, you will encounter many products which are actually products of biotechnology and genetically modified organisms. But do not get a wrong or negative idea or connotations. We buy them and consume them almost every day. They have already been a part of our lives. So such examples are these, the ones you can see from the screen. As they appear flawless and seemingly fortified with nutrients, high chances are a part of their genes have been modified. So here are some of the GMO food products. You can also search more about this in journals, literature available online or available in various references. And these GMO food are present in the market. So we're talking about GMO, genetically modified organisms, right? So these GMO, in particular, their genes, GMO is a plant, animal, microorganism, or other organisms whose genetic makeup has been modified using recombinant DNA methods, also called gene splicing, gene modification, or transgenic technology. So the genes from the DNA of one species are extracted and artificially inserted into the genes of an unrelated plant or animal through genetic engineering or genetic modification. And as mentioned, these are created to address global issues such as food security. A while ago, we've been talking about gene modifications. So I hope we could also be familiar with the process of gene editing. It's the process of making a tiny controlled change in the DNA of a living being to produce the GMO. And humans have crossbred plants for centuries, and developing GMOs is now more of a targeted process. So a promising strategy, one that dodges these challenges and offers long-term sustainability to address issues which are aforementioned, has been using plant breeding programs such as this in order to develop staple crops with higher nutrient levels. So maybe some of you are familiar with golden rice or biofortified crops. So for instance, biofortified crops, they allow people to access specific nutrients through their daily diet. In this way, biofortified crops are an important alternative to alleviate malnutrition in the world. Also, other breeding strategies with genetic engineering can be redirected towards the accumulation of a non-existent target nutrient in a desired tissue, such as, for example, the cereal endosperm of plants, without compromising the micronutrient content in the milling process. So, for instance, in here, the color contrast of rice and the rice here and this golden banana and the multi-nutrient corn, this one, are clearly visible due to the higher content of beta-carotene. And then in this lower right, you can see an image of a scientist supervising an experimental field trial. So these kinds of products, they have gone far in addressing issues related to food. Although, of course, it's also inevitable, a lot of people are still concerned with GMOs, with genetically modified organisms. If not done with great care, genetic engineering can really have negative side effects on food. It can lead to undesirable mutations in genes. This makes us realize that the seemingly rosy picture of genetic engineering in food may prove to be thorny also. So genetic engineering must really be used with responsibility, and high standards should be exercised to ensure safety in the genetically engineered food, because food as a primary, as a basic need of the human body, it's very crucial. So now let's move on to the last part, which is summary and conclusion. So I have just listed the key points from our presentation today. So food is not just a basic necessity or fuel to our body and a human right. So as you have mentioned and as you may experience in your daily lives, it's also a pleasure for the soul. That's why we eat to live and we live to eat. And in terms of the secrets behind food, foodborne pathogens, a lot of contaminations, different threats to the food that we take in. Food safety actually involves everybody in the food chain. Therefore, everybody has a responsibility to ensure safety of food. And finally, food security, it's important because we cannot build this world. We cannot build a peaceful world. We cannot build an economy on empty stomachs. So it's really important that food is a basic human right. Each must be able to acquire food for health and for survival. So together with Vibal, let us continue to be informed and to always be aware in the different learnings. Even amidst this pandemic, learning is made possible by whatever means. And as a key takeaway for this webinar presentation, life comes through the food. And the science of today will be the technology of the future, right? With the advent of technology in the modern world, the bottom line is that, before we introduce new concepts, it's really important that we must be aware before we introduce genetic alterations in food. We should have clear understanding of dangers or threats. Failing to understand the negative aspects of genetic modification of food may pose risk to our health, safety, and of course, to the society at large. And those are the secrets behind what you eat. Thank you very much for listening. Should you have some queries, you can also reach me in my official email address. And these are my references. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Do you have any last reminders to our viewers for today?
Well, I just hope that everyone will be cautious and careful with what we eat. We take pleasure in what we eat, but also we must ensure food safety. Thank you very much, Vibal, for giving another opportunity to raise this topic for everyone.
There we have it. In behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, I would like to thank our speaker for today for this very insightful learning session. It is an honor to have you with us today, ma'am. And to all our Ka-Vibal viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. Don't forget to register to get your e-certificate of participation. We also encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official Vibal Facebook and YouTube channel. Muli, maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating lahat.